Hey, everybody, welcome to this issue of Staffing Monthly, where we are really helping you dig in to some of the most important things that you need to learn to get better at your craft. And one of those is recruiters, you're just doing it wrong. If you're focusing on being the expert and being the professional for your client and you need LinkedIn, if you depend on LinkedIn as your billboard, your brand image, that landing page for you, for your potential clients and candidates to get a sense of who you are, 99% of recruiters are doing it wrong. And you're kind of doing the bare minimum right now, and that's okay. It's not your fault because LinkedIn has evolved, recruiting on LinkedIn has evolved, and it really has it's taken on a new life. And if you're not aware of the right way to do it, I have a guest here today that's going to walk us through exactly what you should be doing as an expert to help you build your brand, expand your reach with candidates, expand your reach with prospects and clients, and really show the people you work with that you are the professional that's going to help them with a great career choice or a great placement. I'm pleased that I've just met this person within the last couple of months. I'm actually really thrilled to know them and get to work with them. This is Alexis Mesky, who is the CIO and integrator for Aura Marketing. And if you're not familiar with Aura, they are one of the premier consultants, coaches, advisors to recruiters in the industry to help you really optimize your LinkedIn presence and really your LinkedIn outreach. So you're really leveraging the greatest tool that we have. She actually started out as a branding and marketer and focused on like brand photography for entrepreneurs. So she gets the struggle and the journey of us independents and us owners out there. And as she started working with these people, she realized that most of them were amazing at what they did. They did a really good job of attracting talent. They did a great job of working with clients. They just didn't have a clear brand strategy, which guilty as charged. That's a tough part for us recruiters. That's not a natural thing that comes to us yet. As we move more and more towards marketing and online identity and all of this digital world, like you need it. You need to have that clear brand strategy so you can really leverage yourself digitally. So she actually shifted her focus from photography more into brand strategy, and she's actually settled more into the recruiting space, partnering with her friend Donnie Gupton, who really his reputation precedes himself. He is one of the kind of foremost thought leaders in the recruiting space out there. If you've not heard of him, I don't know how, but definitely look him up, look at his videos. He provides amazing content for this. But without further ado, Alexis, I want to welcome you to Staffing Monthly and thank you for being here and kind of talking about this very important topic right now.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's truly my passion to help other people. I'm in the business of helping other people grow. And so anytime that I can speak this message to a broader audience and share ways that you can grow and build your brand, build your business, I love being here for that. So thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, I know we got connected because I saw this as a challenge. I reached out to you, and I will tell you for those who are watching, if you've not heard of Aura or met Alexis yet, I had gosh, I don't even know how I came across your information, but when I saw it, I didn't even reach out to you directly. I was like, okay, what is this? Sure, you can promise better results. And I went right to people that were your testimonials. And I was like, okay, well, if they're optimizing LinkedIn, I'm going to go to their LinkedIn and I'm going to check it out. So you had no idea. You sent me something. I'm out in the orbit and I'm just doing some background checkup on you and your work to see if you're even legitimate. And I found a couple of the people that you list as testimonials.
Mhm.
And I reached out to both of them on LinkedIn, again, without you even knowing. And there's a reason I'm emphasizing this, and I'm going to close it before I ask this question. And they both had glowing reviews. And they were like, yeah, this is amazing, which I get it. You listed them as testimonies. You probably knew that, but they were thrilled. And they were like, yeah, we would highly recommend this. We weren't really doing LinkedIn right prior to working with Alexis and with Aura. And we're thrilled with the results. And I started analyzing their profile, and I realized there was something different about it. Um, Before I ask the question that I really want your knowledge on, the reason that I emphasize that process so much, guys and gals that are out there watching this, that's what's happening with you. If anyone comes across your profile or they hear your marketing message about how you can help them find a job or you can help them find better candidates and you're doing that, that's where the sales process is starting, is they're checking you out online, just like I did. And I didn't do it intentionally. That's just my process, right? I wanted to, before I even wasted my time reaching out, I wanted to know, am I talking to an expert? and ended up I was. So you need to be thinking that that's how your prospects are looking at you, and that's what Alexis can help us with here today. So Alexis, how let's start with this. Like what's changed with LinkedIn, or like what are recruiters kind of getting wrong from just a 10,000 foot view? How are they not using LinkedIn the right way?
Um, I'm going to say you talked about the way things have changed in the beginning, and the thing that I want to add to that is marketing has changed. And this is like the biggest thing. Like, yes, the industry has changed, but sales is still sales, right? I mean, a process is still a process. What's in LinkedIn, socials have changed, but what's
Yeah.
really changed is marketing. Marketing has completely changed. The way that we consume content has evolved drastically over the last few years, and it's like rapidly, rapidly changing. And one of the things that people are not doing and that recruiters are still not doing, I mean, we work specifically with recruiters. I mean, we know this industry really, really well, is they are still not putting their face and their personal brand to their business, which like honestly blows my mind about the recruiting industry because the recruiters, your capital is humans. Like you are in the most human to human industry that there is. And yet most recruiters are still not putting themselves as the human in front of their business. It's it's a very I'm going to just say archaic industry in some ways. Like they're very slow to catch up. And no offense, everyone, but some recruiters are just so slow to catch up to the ways that are working to build your business. And people still think that, you know, cold calling and cold outreach is the way to go. And that has a place. Like, please know, like, I'm not saying that that doesn't exist, but the way that people are consuming content is through human to human interaction. And if you believe that, like, I mean, think about every way that you're consuming content nowadays, like whether that's in social spaces, the way you're being advertised to, there is a much more human element to what it is. And a lot of recruiters still are maybe unwilling, but don't even know how to put that human face. They think that it's unprofessional for some reason. And so that's honestly one of the biggest problems that we see and the biggest objection that we have with a lot of recruiters.
So what does that mean? Like when you say putting their face out there, obviously it's social media and you know every good recruiter is going to have a good profile picture, but like what do you mean put themselves out there? Like what does that actually mean tangibly?
Absolutely. What that means is building your personal brand. And this is if you're a solo staffing agency, if you work with a larger agency, it does not matter. It's putting the human in front of the brand. So let me get clear as to what that looks like.
Okay.
Ultimately, what that is giving people an experience of what it's like to work with you, of who you are, how you serve them, and your differentiator. You cannot do that if you're just posting job listings. You cannot do that if you're just resharing articles. You cannot do that if you're just talking about the latest uh, big thing going on in the industry. Ultimately, everybody's doing that stuff. If you're decent, you're doing that kind of stuff. But like you're not differentiating yourself at all if you're not building a personal brand. So what we suggest and what we do for all of our clients is designing your personal brand and a personal experience. And here's the thing that I think is wrong. A lot of people think a personal brand is ultimately like, well, this is what I'm putting out there, and you get to kind of interpret what this is. Somebody that's wise and that's actually working on building their business is designing that experience for their ideal clients. It's creating crafted content for the people that are paying you. I mean, ultimately, it's not about just talking to other recruiters. That's something, another thing a lot of recruiters get wrong. Just putting out content that relates to recruiters or just putting out content related to candidates. That kind of stuff, honestly, is really easy. But ultimately, you want to create content for your ideal clients. So what we want you to do is we want you to lead that market. We want to position you as a leader. And that's kind of the easier part, but we also want you to serve. And this part's really challenging. What are some value that you can offer to your ideal clients? What are some ways that you can really serve them, to educate them, to put out goodwill into the market? And then the hardest part for a lot of people is we want you to connect. We want to create ways that are true and authentic to who you are, that show what it's like to work with you, so that when someone comes to your page, they holistically understand who it is that they're seeing and viewing. So they want to reach out and they already know what it's like to work with you.
So how do we so I do agree, and I quick sidebar, and I've been saying this for a while, is that one of the reasons it's so hard to sell right now is because our industry generally lacks differentiation, and
Yeah.
in the lack, when you lack differentiation, you typically you're over commoditized, and that's kind of what we're facing. And it's hard to like let people know like why they should pick us. Um, but that's when I hear you speak, Alexis, and I'm going through this process. I'm a very visual person. I'm thinking about, we'll say, let's go to the client side. Let's start there. Client lands on your recruiter profile. You've been reaching out, maybe doing some of that cold calling, maybe some emailing, some outreach. You met someone at a LinkedIn or a networking event, and they land on your LinkedIn and they're looking at your LinkedIn profile. Like from my experience, most people aren't scouring everything. They're not really looking at it as if it's a CV, resume, whatever. Like what is a company landing on a LinkedIn profile? Like what are they seeing first? And what would they be looking at that would actually help them know the personal side, the personal brand of somebody?
Yeah. So I think the first thing that people should be paying attention to is your banner. And like your banner, number one, I think if you're a decent recruiter, you at least have like your logo up there, right? Like at least it's semi-personal. But like what people should be doing is optimizing their banner. Like that should be your sales strip ultimately. Like you can give some key phrases, you can say what it is that you're about, but like what are some ways that you can boom? That's the first thing they're going to be looking at right off the bat. Make sure that you're utilizing it well. And ultimately, we want to use a sales or marketing strategy on your LinkedIn banner. If we're really going into detail, I'm talking about like the best of the best.
And,
The other
are you suggesting like some sort of like call to action there? I know it's really not a clickable link in the banner, which God, I wish it
totally.
was. But like as an example, if you're a recruiter, and I don't mean to throw you off because I want to go down that thread, but like if you're a recruiter, what kind of call to action would you actually be putting up there to really get people to draw them in?
Well, ideally, I'd love you to have a lead magnet. And like that's something that I'd want people to click on your email or click on the link to get something in order to exchange your email. And in that case, you'd want to put your lead magnet up there. So like um download my free guide on how to blank, 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 or something like that. Now, a lot of people, they're not even there yet. So, like,
Sure.
if you are not there, ultimately, we want to say what you do, who you are, what you do, and what you do really well. So, usually, this is like your tagline or your marketing phrase. Like, hopefully, most businesses have that kind of collateral. You could put something on like the market that you serve, ideally. So, like, if you're a hiring manager in the digital technology space, blank, blank, blank. Like you can give them a message right there. So you want to be super, super clear, but also attractive. Does that
Yeah,
clarify? Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense. All right, so keep
Yeah.
going. So banner. So they're looking at the banner. That's
Banner.
like step one. Like you've got to have it optimized. Some sort of call to action, something that's a clear message. That's step one. What are they looking at next?
And then please, 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 please have a updated profile picture. This is one of the things that I talk about frequently in my own content. Here's my thing. If your profile picture isn't remotely up to date and I hop on a call with you and you look so different, like so different, where it's like 10, 15, 20 years later, I have no problem with that. I instantly lose trust though, because I'm like, why aren't you confident enough and capable enough to have a picture of who you really are? That makes me and it makes people lose trust right off the bat. So that may be a harsh statement, and I know how hard it is, but like, give me something that's authentic and real and true. Otherwise, I don't have trust in you.
So what is it? What's a good range? Because I actually get this question. Probably one of the most common questions I get around profile pictures is like, how long, like how old can it be before you got to replace it, right? And I've got my answer, which I'll share in a second. But what is
I
your
don't
answer
know
there?
if it's an age as much as like, does this look like me? Like, ask your partner, ask someone who will be honest with you. Like, does this still look like me? Like, do you think that it's an authentic reflection? I mean, we go through phases where like 5 years, you haven't really changed very much. And then like you hit a year and it's like, we may have aged a little bit. So I don't know if I don't have a specific age. Do you have one that you give to people? I just think
So
does it look
I
like?
so I do so my primer is the same thing. It's like as long as it really is an accurate representation or a reasonable representation of you, then it's probably fine. But I usually tell people like if it's older than 2 years, it's probably a good idea just to go get a new headshot,
Yeah.
and like update it every couple of years. I think is a good practice is what I that's what I land on.
Yeah. I'm with you. So that's significant to me because I think that that's a trust builder right off the bat. And then the next are the lines that are right
So
underneath.
I'm gonna hit this because I think there's more there because I see
Okay. Okay.
a lot of terrible headshots on the profile pictures. And my biggest pet peeve is the wedding shot when you were like in a wedding party and like
Yes.
your arm is around somebody and like you kind of cut your arm and them out of the picture. So like what are your best practices? If someone wants to have an amazing profile picture that's going to draw people in, like what is like the best setup for that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're talking to a former brand photographer. So
I
like
know,
this
that's what I'm
is
asking you.
important to me, right? So yeah, please, like this is really not that hard. Like I'm actually not a fan per it's perfectly
Well,
adequate.
so it's not hard for you because you're a photographer,
No,
right? A lot of
no,
people in
but I'm going to
staffing were
simplify.
people. So think about it. So like
Like
those,
I honestly think a phone photo is perfectly adequate if you have somebody that knows how to use a decent
yeah,
phone photo. Now, simple background, nothing like go on a
yeah,
blank wall, decent lighting, get somebody to snap a picture. Like it is not complicated, people. Now,
yeah,
if you want something like a professional headshot where people are going to touch up a little bit, you're really in your best garb, lighting, like by all means do that. I like something with a little more personality than that, but that's
yeah.
just me. I mean, I like something a little more dynamic, but
So
like if at the very least, standard photo against a blank wall, like that somebody can take with your phone is fine nowadays. Phone photos are fantastic.
mine's a phone photo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yours is great.
I had a friend, again, qualified photographer. I mean, he's a high-end, graphic designer, brand consultant for major brands. But yeah, he was like, hey, he's like, I'll update your headshot right now. We were actually at meeting at Starbucks, and he's like, I'll hit it right now with my, I think, iPhone 13, maybe it was,
Yeah.
So
No, truly, like the headshots that a lot of us have done with like the lights and you're holding all the lights at all the angles. I mean, that's fine, and it's very nice, but like you
we don't
don't
need to
need
do
that.
that
Like,
anymore.
don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the message. Don't overcomplicate it. Like just
Right.
love it. Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, so banner, headshot done. Like, what's next?
So the next is the lines underneath your photo. Make it clear what you do. Talk to the industry. Like you can use that. People think that they have to put like, recruiter in their industry and like, mom of three kids, like, and that's fine. You can add a little personality, but ultimately make it clear exactly what you do in the industry that you serve. And if you have a unique differentiator or like, again, tagline, this is where we want to use that real estate. Those are the first three things. I go on so many people's profile. I have no idea what they do. I really don't. Like I see that they're a recruiter, but then I have to scroll and then I'm looking at their about section. That's still not great. And then I'm looking at their experience, but like don't make people work. Like it needs to be right there off the bat. Um, and then your about section. And I think that this is where a lot of most people don't get this right. But one of the things that we have our clients do is like, that's your sales page. Like you need to
Yeah.
sell on that page. Like be strategic, ask the questions, talk to your audience. Then at the bottom, put about you. But like you're losing, people want to see themselves. Like this is what we say all the time. Hold up a mirror to your audience. They want to see them. They don't want to see you, really. And so ultimately, we want to use that about section as a sales page.
That's funny. I had a sales mentor years and years and years ago, and he would always say that like the worst advice you can give somebody, a new salesperson, is be yourself. And he's like, it's just not the case. He's like, people buy from people they like, and people like them.
Yeah.
So I like that you're using the about as like a bridge. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I connect with you, and if they see enough elements of themselves, they will feel comfortable reaching out.
Yeah. I like to think of it as like if you're looking at a house, the about section is like, here's my open door. You're kind of on that front porch, you're inviting them in. And if they like what they see, they're going to come in. And what is there when they come in, if we're moving down the LinkedIn page, is great content. And that's ultimately a content that is video, it's posts, it's graphics, because you want to attract all different types of people. And then you've hooked them a little bit more. And then they get to see what you're like, and then they get to see themselves in their content. So really, yeah, that about section is an invitation. It's an invitation inside to get an experience of who you are, your leadership, your ability to serve, and your ability to connect.
And I definitely want to get into the content piece. I know that's really where you specialize because that's like the biggest hurdle to being a recruiter because that's historically been a really time and thought intensive process. So we'll spend more time on that in a second. But I like the concept that you said you're about should really speak to your audience. And as you use that real estate analogy, I look at I'm on Realtor and Redfin and like Zillow Homes all the time. Like I'm looking at, I don't know, it's a hobby. I love to look at houses. I like to look at listings and stuff. And I always read the listings. I read the about the house. And if a house doesn't have it, like I'm like, I don't really, I'm kind of turned off. But
Mhm.
I really appreciate a realtor that takes the time to write a good about this house thing. And if they write it in a way that's like, it tells me about the house, but it also like highlights how some of the key features of the house solve problems, right? And if that relates to the problems that I have, I'm like, wow, this is a really nice house. Like I can see this. Like if I'm in my current house and maybe I'm frustrated with not enough space, right? Or not like it's too closed off. If they highlight that like there's ample storage, right? And maybe there's like one of those great pantries that are kind of a hidden pantry behind your refrigerator, like, oh, that'd be amazing. Or maybe it's that nice flow for entertaining. Like if it covers it in a story, like I love that. And I really appreciate when recruiters do that with their about me section. And they're like, hey, this is my journey and this is kind of who I've learned to help and serve and why I'm so good at this and why I'm so passionate about it and what my clients kind of get from working with me. Like I love how they weave that together and they're about me.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed that because ultimately you need to relate to your target audience's problems. And I mean, you're talking about the same thing with houses. You don't leave it blank for them to interpret. Like what I was saying before, you need to design the experience of what it is that they want and show them the solutions that you have so that you're the obvious choice.
And I think that comes back to something that you said earlier about like knowing your ideal customer, right? And that's one thing that we need to do. If you need a differentiator, like you need to be able to know exactly who your customer is, the challenges they face, what their desired outcome is, how your solution can take them from where they're currently at to that desired outcome. So if you know that really well, you can actually have a great tagline in your banner, you can have a great story in your about me, and then you can actually create more pointed and more effective content. So before I tee up the next question that I really want to dig into and spend the rest of our time talking about with the content pieces, it's hard. I'll tell you right now, like my personal journey in this space, like I feel like I'm probably slightly above average on LinkedIn, but keeping up with the content game and seeing some of the really amazing people out there, like one of my favorite profiles is Sherry Garcia from Cornbread Hustle. Like she's amazing with content, and she's got an amazing following, and there's a lot of other people out there that are really amazing, but I'm always like, man, how do they post so much? Like when do they have time to actually do their job? Like when they're creating amazing video and amazing pictures and all this written content, like it's a lot and it slowed me down, and so I think that's the biggest barrier to why most recruiters don't invest in this is it's very time intensive, very thought intensive. And I think that's the barrier. And that's really so walk us through like go a little deeper into the content. I know you kind of mentioned the overview of the categories, like go a little deeper into what content they should be sharing and what Aura has done to kind of make it easier for recruiters.
Yeah. I mean, listen, that's the biggest problem that we solve because it is the biggest problem is the time it takes. It takes you away from your job and you have to create content. That's a significant challenge, let alone the fact that you're a recruiter, not a marketer, right? Like not only the fact that you have to actually create it, you have to think about what it is that to create, and you don't even know if it's going to be effective or not. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
sometimes you're just taking a stab at it, like thinking or hoping that it would work. And oftentimes it attracts other recruiters, not ideal clients, right? So, yeah, I mean, that is the problem we solve with our clients. But let me get into those categories a little bit
Okay.
more. The first one, like I mentioned before, is leading your audience. So we need to show your ability to be successful. But I think that one of the things that people do really wrong with this one is they're just talking about what I've done, what I did with this company, what I was able to do. And if you just ever so slightly shift that to kind of what you were just talking about before this, highlight the problem that the company was having first. Where was the problem? And again, talk about something that your ideal client is struggling with as well. Like, I mean, we're trying to mirror here. So
Yeah.
talking about the problem, talking about your unique solution. So being solution oriented, and then the result that they've experienced since their help. But again, keeping it company focused, not I focused. That's a great way to lead. And I think that one of the biggest, another big problem that we see, and I when I audit people's content that are not my clients yet, This is one of the biggest things I see if they're creating content. Their content is I focused. It's I did this. I did this. I was able to do this. And it's such a small minor shift to be able to like keep the I out of it and focus on the problem, the solution, the result. The other way to lead is like talk about things going on in your industry. People are so afraid to step on people's toes. It's honestly exhausting for me. It's like speak your truth. Like,
Yeah.
what is your truth? Because if somebody doesn't resonate with you, they're either going to respect you and disagree, or they'll move along and they're not your people anyways. But like we had somebody, one of our clients is very outspoken in a respectful way, but she is who she is. I mean, she talks about things. She talked about phantom job postings, like not even that controversial of a topic, but like she got so much kickback from it, but then also attracted people and more clients because people were so interested in our content. Like we have to be able to speak our truth in our own way. Like I'm not saying bulldoze, that's not at all what I'm saying. But in your own way, you have to speak about content that shows that you have an opinion and a voice and can lead. So that kind of is that first category and that first pillar of leading. There's a lot of ways that we work with our clients on this, but that's kind of a general overview. Does that one
Yeah.
ring true? Make sense?
Yeah, that's absolutely. I love that. I love that. So what's the next area that we need to be focusing on as recruiters to be able to do?
Yeah, the next one is serving. And I think that this is really hard for a lot of people because they feel this is where imposter syndrome really comes in. It's like, I
Mhm.
don't have anything valuable to add. I don't have anything to say that nobody has ever said before. That's not true. Like, if you talk, think about if you took your last week's conversations with hiring managers, what were the questions that they were asking you over and over again? You would have a month's worth of content right there. Like you already have the content within you. You're just not thinking of it as content yet. So how can you serve? What were some of the ways that you added value? What were they asking you about? How can you then turn that and just educate on a broader perspective? So these are ways that we talk with our clients about putting tips, putting value, education, ways that you can support. Now, here's something that I want to say about this type of content. You are not going to get as much engagement on this content. And here's why. Because hiring managers, decision makers, they're not like writing comments like, thank you so much. That was so valuable. Like, but they're watching. I guarantee you this type of content, if you go to your profile views, you're going to see the right kind of people that are checking you out and starting to follow. So we do really want to put out that service content because we want people to see that you're willing to help and willing to support.
So I love that. And that's actually that's one of the areas that has served me the best in client side lead generation over the years. And I would not do it digitally. And for those out there listening to this, I am not the use case. Like I'm not the model LinkedIn user. In fact, I just remembered how we crossed paths. You somehow landed on my profile and you actually sent me a LinkedIn message. And
Yeah.
I get these all the time. I get people asking me like, "Hey, you want me to optimize your LinkedIn or optimize your LinkedIn outreach?" And you did something that was very different and I think on brand that made me like, "Okay, I'm going to question this." You actually sent, I don't know if it was Loom or you use like a service like
I
Loom.
use Loom.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it was like a little Loom video and it was like, "Hey, Dan, I was on your profile. You know, you did some really good things. You're missing the mark here, which is a really massive missed opportunity. You know, you ever thought about doing more like this?" And two things that one, the fact that you actually dropped in with Loom was a massive differentiator because that does not happen, you know, probably less than 1% of the messages I get actually have that video. So that was a fantastic differentiator. So pro tip for anyone watching this, like that's a great way to actually up your business development efforts on LinkedIn. But two, you actually called some things out. You're like, here's some things that it's a really missed opportunity, you know, and have you thought about this? And what that did in that moment, because I had been thinking about it. In fact, I had been like a little bit stressing about it and been anxious. And I was like, oh God, but it's like one more thing. Like, I don't have time to do it. You know, so yes, it was on my mind. So you entered my mental conversation and you hit it at a point, you're like, yeah, have you been thinking about this? Because we could have a quick call and walk you through some ways to optimize it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I would do that. It has been on my mind. So you kind of hit it right at the right time as well, but I thought that was really good. I completely lost my train of thought because like that just popped back in there. So anyway, so what I used to do, I've never really done a good job of this digitally through LinkedIn, this serving.
Mhm.
What I used to do is I used to get booked at HR events to be a speaker, right? Because like I can present well, right? So I would go there and this is what I would do. I wouldn't tell them all about me and like how great I am or even how great my company was. I would say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be a professional recruiter. I'm going to show you what it takes to be a professional recruiter, knowing that I might have an audience of 100, 200 HR managers in there. And I would show them the entire process, all of the resource utilization, all of the thought goes into a professional recruiting process, all of the work that goes into doing it right. And then at the end, I would say, hey, if hopefully these tips have been really helpful and it can help you on your journey. And I would mean that sincerely. But I also would say, if for some reason you don't have the bandwidth or you feel a little bit, uncomfortable like doing all of this, or maybe you don't have the resources to do all of this, yet you want the results, maybe we should partner. Maybe you should just leverage me and I can help you get the results without having to learn all this or do all this or get all these resources yourself. And I was okay with that. And I would always get people walking up to me being like, I had no idea what it takes to be a professional recruiter. Now I sort of realize why I'm not getting the results that I want with my current process, and I don't have the ability to do what you just said. So maybe we should work together, you know, and that was okay. Not everybody did that, but I'm not trying to serve the world, right? I'm trying
Mhm.
to serve the people that most need my services. So like I like your concept. I've just never digitized that. I've always done
Right.
it from a physical platform. So I think that's an area that hopefully those watching can learn from my own missteps.
Yeah, I mean that was perfectly said. I mean, taking that kind of content and putting it on a broader audience that's listening. I mean, and when you talked about the video that I sent and it was kind of the right timing, I mean, marketing is about putting the messages out and breadcrumbing, if you will. So when it's the right time, you're top of mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, video. I mean, you're on brand with video content and you're actually walking the talk, right?
Yeah.
So that was it showed me that like that's my first thing. Can this person really do what they say they can do? And the fact that you're actually doing it, like, and quick sidebar, and then I want to get into the next category is one thing that really like I demo softwares all the time. Like I get so many pitches in the industry, like, hey, we do this for staffing and we do this. It is a red flag when someone is not using their own software, right? Like if I get someone that's like pitching like LinkedIn outreach automation and they're not actually using their own software or they're pitching like a CRM or something and they're using HubSpot, I love HubSpot. But like if you're pitching a competitor to HubSpot essentially and like you're actually using HubSpot, like that's a red flag to me, So the fact that you were actually walking the talk was I thought was a very on brand.
Yes, I could not agree more. If anybody looks into any type of service for marketing, do they do what they say that they do? I mean, I obviously follow so many marketing agencies and different things, and it's honestly laughable sometimes. I'm like, you're saying you're doing this, but you don't, none of that is reflective on your own feed. So yes, walk the talk.
Right. So we've got lead your audience, serve your audience. What is the next thing that our recruiter should be doing to really stand out and be the expert for their tribe?
Yeah, the next one is connect. And this can be really, really hard for humans in general because they feel like there's a level of vulnerability and there is, but like it should be vulnerability within your comfort zone is what I say. So this is like ways that you would just connect human to human. Like when you and I first met, we talked a little bit about your family and your travels, right? And I shared with you a little about mine because that's what humans do. And like
Yeah.
humans want to connect in that way. I
Yeah.
recorded with a client yesterday afternoon. He was a D1 football player. And he was kind of talking about some of his experiences with that. And I'm really over the forced posts that you see of like, here's what proposing to my wife taught me about recruiting. Like, it doesn't all have to be so tied in. There can be times where it is, by all means, this guy's experience playing D1 football definitely ties into business. And that was a natural tie in, right? But he also is a yogi and did a post on yoga, some of the things that are important to him, didn't tie it into business because that would have been a weird forced post. And like, don't be, and this is the thing, people look at other people's content and they're like, well, I would never share the fact that I do yoga and like he did that because that's one of his core principles that's so important to who he is. And you had better believe that that resonates with his audience because like, and if it doesn't, they're not gonna, that's not his people anyways. And so this
Right.
is all different for different humans. I do talk about, I have two girls in college and a girl in high school, three daughters. I do talk a little bit about some of my parenting journeys and life lessons. I never did that when they were little. It just didn't feel true to
Right.
myself. I talk about my grandma who's 106 and the things that she inspires me to do. There's because it's things that are important to me. And like, I love nothing more than when I end up talking with somebody and they're like, "Oh my gosh, your grandma's 106, mine just turned 100." It's human connection. And like this is the best part. It creates that connection. It shows people what I value. I value family is number one. Family, faith is important to me, my work ethic. Like those I want people to see that about me because that's who I am. And I want people that maybe they don't always align with that, but they appreciate that about me. So the connect part's huge.
Yeah, I love that, and I think the people that are like, no way would I share that about me. I personally feel like there's two things going on there. First and foremost, it's probably scarcity mindset. They 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 feel like if they share something like that, it's going to slice their market in half or slice it by 80%. They
Totally.
feel like it's like, and they're afraid that if they lose that chunk, that they're going to lose out, that they won't be successful. And the reality is like when you try to serve that chunk and you're hiding part of your true self from them, like if it slips out at some point, you might feel embarrassed by it because you
Right.
went into it thinking you needed to hide it, and that's not good, mentally anyway, you
Mhm.
know. So like you're afraid, but the reality is it's the marketing and all of the data says out there the riches are in the niches, right? But like if you go niche, if you basically carve down, like there's going to be a huge audience for you. And I got to believe that if you're a recruiter and you're also into yoga, you would probably love working with clients that are paying you reasonable fees or working with candidates that are actually interested in yoga, that you would actually have something else to talk about than just the order, right?
Right.
Like so there's this level of congruence. I will say that they're probably the other one, and hopefully this is not the case, is just people they've got maybe self-esteem issues and they're like maybe they like,
Yeah.
hey, people are going to judge me by this, and I would encourage you to not let that constraint hold you back. Like get rid of that limiting belief. Like you are a valuable person, and the things that you're interested in, I promise you there are millions and millions of other people on this planet that are interested in the same thing, and if you focus on just being your true authentic self, you will find your tribe. And one great example, completely unrelated to recruiting, that I experienced recently. I had the opportunity to go see Imagine Dragons. Amazing. I like that music. The great artist, and I had a chance to go see him live. And I've heard they put on a good show. Heard they're really engaged. They really connect with the audience, and I was shocked by how packed it was. Like it was amazing how many people turned out for this event, and I was like, this is incredible. And about three-quarters of the way through the show, he actually kind of the music dulls down and he gets up and he's telling this story. And he's like, let me tell you how this all started. And he talked about how when he was 12, he started basically becoming mentally numb and the things that brought him joy no longer did. And he thought that that was just normal. But then he got to the point where he realized that maybe this isn't normal. I'm looking at everybody else. They all seem so happy. And that's not how I feel. And he took the incredible step to go talk to somebody, to just
Mhm.
say, hey, this is what's going on with me. And he talked about his journey with therapy and how it's changed his entire life, and how really the fact that he's led Imagine Dragons to being one of the most popular, bands in the world today and one of the most popular concerts in the world today because of that, because he just stepped out and said, hey, and that was something that most people that's taboo. Most people would not stand up and say, hey, I'm in therapy. Like I need it. Like I don't always, feel comfortable with myself or my thoughts. So like I talk to professionals. Like most people don't just shout that out there, but he did this on stage at his concert in front of thousands of people. Like it was insane how many people were there. And I was like, wow, that is really cool. And then obviously he encouraged, others similar to follow in that journey if they needed that sort of help. But that's an example of it. Like that is like being into yoga is probably more socially acceptable than saying, hey, I struggle with mental health and I use a therapist. And so I was pretty impressed by that. But that's that concept. Like he's connecting with that audience. And what's really funny, there's probably a lot of people that were there that like don't go to therapy. That there's
Yeah.
probably people there that might even have a negative stigma about therapy, that they're like, you know what? That's pretty cool. That guy shared that. I love that. And they still connected with him because he was being authentic and transparent, So I think there's really something to being trying to connect with your audience, and don't hide who you are. Just don't,
Yeah.
like be unique.
Yeah. I'm going to say every client that I have comes up in conversation something about being nervous about putting themselves out there, whether that's just, and I don't think it's always insecurity, but it's vulnerability, which is scary for anybody as humans. But like what you just talked about, you can like a band, and we can also say you can like a brand, but it's when you find out the human to human part that builds brand loyalty, that builds like cult obsessions, like whether it's with a human. I mean, think about the people that we follow. Like you mentioned someone in the beginning, and I think about the people that I follow. None of those people are hiding who they are. Like if you go to any of those people's page, the people that we love following, they are always putting themselves out there, and that's what builds like our loyalty to them and our following. And whether we buy from them at some point or not, they are putting themselves out there. It's the common denominator of all of those types of people.
They do, yeah. And that you're probably thinking of when I mentioned Sherry Garcia, who
Yes.
from Cornbread Hustle, like her whole brand is like what most in recruiting would have been considered taboo a
Mhm.
decade ago. She
Mhm.
focuses not only on, but she focuses primarily on giving people a second chance. You know,
Mhm.
people that might have a criminal record, you know, and finding like people that have truly redeemed themselves and they're ready to work and contribute. Like she will put them into jobs. And like herself, she has a troubled past and she is vocal about it. She shares it openly, amazingly, you know, and she's got an incredible story. And she probably is one of the biggest followings on LinkedIn. And it's insane. You start to look at the clients and she puts her clients out there. She's like, this is who I'm like, I'm placing all these people at this particular client. And most of those clients are like the premier companies that any recruiter or staffing agency would love to work with. And you're like, wow, how do we go from 10 years ago when a lot of companies just throw a little shade at this, like what it used to be a decade prior, would be like, hey, you know, we need to make sure we're using you because we want to filter this out. Like, we don't want people to have this background or this background. And this lady's like, no, that's my tribe. Like, if you want really good workers, like, this is who it is. And like, I'm glad to see it's changed, right? But she does not hide her own story. She does not hide it. And her following is massive, you know, because she connected and she serves and she leads and she does all of those things. So I think she's an amazing, amazing brand out there. So we got lead, we got serve, and we got connect. Is there some other piece of content or some other, not piece, some other intentionality of content that recruiters need to be thinking about here?
I would honestly say those are the three main pillars. And I would say the other things that I'll add to that is you have to be consistent. Like it, the biggest problem is somebody's going to listen to this, get super inspired. They're going to invest the time. They're going to give it a go for a month and then why isn't it working? And then throw in the towel. And then they don't post for months. And then they get another wave of inspiration. And then that's not the way it works. Like brands take time to build. You can definitely experience success right off the bat, or it could take months. It doesn't matter. The whole point is consistency. You have to be consistent. And then you really should be posting a variety of content. So you should be doing video, you should be doing posts, they should be graphics in there as well, personal photos. And I don't mean headshots, I mean personal photos. That's one of the biggest ways that we're seeing success. You can talk about something totally professional, add a personal photo to it, it's going to have a much better performance. But I mean, ultimately, you really want to be doing all those things. It's very hard. We've seen a massive increase in content creation over the past 2 years
Yeah.
because of AI. Now, here's the thing. That's great. I mean, we all use AI. I hope we're all using AI for different things, but it takes a lot more to cut through the noise. And this is one of the reasons video's so much more effective nowadays, because you at least currently can't fake that. So it's like going to get more attention than AI. So do a variety of content if you really want to attract people the best that you can.
You know, I think you can fake video. We're not as much as the other stuff. And I was shocked to see this new AI tool out there. I did not sign up for this one. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but you basically could sign up and they will clone you. They'll create a digital version of exactly you. And I want to say they also have a Zoom integration. So if you train your digital AI avatar well enough, you can just send it to your Zoom meetings on your behalf. And I was like, at first, I'm like, wow, that sounds really amazing because I would love to just not have to show up for all the Zoom meetings that I'm a part of. But then I thought, man, like, you're literally giving that creative license to have your likeness out there that's trained exactly like you. Like, what happens if that person just makes a FaceTime phone call
Yeah.
or Like I'm like, that's a bridge too far for me right now. But
Yes.
so everything you just said there at the end about the lack of consistency, like I struggle with that personally. Like honestly, what you described, I feel like you were probably like looking at my post history because like I get bouts of inspiration. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to be doing this because I know that I need to do it. And then only when it builds up to a point of time where I'm like, yeah, I have to do it. Like I know that I need to do it. It's just like going to the gym. Like I know I need to go to the gym. And then I go and I find the time to do it. And that time also coincides with like the weight on the shoulders of knowing it needs to be done, right? And that's why, and just for those out there, that's why I've looked at this, I've vetted Aura. This is not a paid interview. This is not anything. And like Alexis has come on her own accord. I invited her on. All the things she's talking about, she's taught people how to do these things. You don't have to use Aura to do this. You can actually go do this. You don't have to do all of it, but I believe this is my endorsement that like that's what the top 1% of recruiters are doing. And if you're an agency and you own multiple recruiters, you might want to think about actually like how do we actually create a centralized brand and then actually create individualized content that are sort of like serving a singular vision with like collective effort,
Mhm.
so you get that brand continuity on a bigger scale. But for me, I've struggled with these issues and I am not going to try to do it myself anymore. I am actually going to be engaging with Aura and have them work this. So if you're looking at my profile and you're saying, hey, this is what the benchmark is, and we're going to document the starting point. Um, I'm going to go with this. I'm going to buy into their system and I'm going to have Alexis talk about what that actually looks like in a second. So you know what that is. And then I would love in like 4 months, maybe starting out the beginning of the year, going into 25, come back and we'll just do a very transparent before and after. Hey, this is what it looked like. This is what was going on. This is how we went through the process. These are things I've learned that I wish I would have known, maybe to help you out on your journey with a head start, and see where things are at. And we're not probably going to quit there, but the reality is like we need to see that, but you need to have some time allowed for it to take shape because marketing is not, it's just like going to the gym. You can't go to the gym tomorrow and get in shape, right? You can't, start doing one thing on LinkedIn in a day and then have a brand,
Mhm.
so we're going to do that. And like I say, we'll have Alexis back in a few months to kind of report back on what we did cumulatively together, share transparently some results, what we found, the things that worked well, things that didn't work well, things we hope were different. But Alexis, can you share with the audience like what that process might entail if they don't want to wait 4 months to hear what it is that they're like, yeah, you know what, I just would like to get some help with this now. And maybe take that journey with me. That would be super exciting if we could get some people to
Yeah.
say, hey, Dan, I'm on the same timeline as you. Let's compare notes. But what does that process look like? What does Aura actually do for recruiters to help them get into that kind of top 1% of people using LinkedIn?
So we have a done for you service, but keeping you at the center of it, which seems impossible. People don't understand how we do it. So let me explain. Ultimately, we have a rich onboarding call where I find out everything about your business. And just so you know, it's actually me that you work with. I don't pawn you off to my team. It's actually me. So I find out all about your business, your ideal clients, the problems you solve, your solution, everything. And then every month, I create content ideas for you. So I'm giving you 8 to 10 different topics that go through those pillars that I mentioned, but tailored to your uh, to your business and to your brand. And then what we do is we have a 1 hour video recording call. So ultimately, it's very similar to this, to a Zoom, but we have a high-end virtual recording platform. And I'm walking you through creating all those video pieces of content. The beauty of it is that number one, if you've tried to create video by yourself, it can be really hard.
So
It can
hard.
be
So hard.
you're like talking to yourself. It's like, did I do this right? Like, it's so frustrating.
So
Like,
hard.
not let alone the editing and everything. But like, you get me as a director, as a guide, as a support, as a cheerleader, and then I'm also walking you through like best practices. Like, let's word that a little bit differently. Or like, what if we started with this? So I'm walking you through all of that video content together, and then you're literally done for the month. That is all the effort that you have to put in. Then I take it to my
Well, not
team.
entirely. There is some other stuff that they have to do later, but that's through the content.
What do you mean?
They got to post the stuff, right? You don't.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you have to post the content.
We'll get there though. We'll get there
Yeah.
though.
So ultimately, we take it to our team. So we do the video editing for you. We take those other concepts, we turn them into written posts. We do branded graphics for you. And we actually put together in 2 weeks after that recording call, you get a document that is everything that you need to post for the month. And so the other work that you have to do is copy and paste. I mean, that's it. So you copy and paste into your LinkedIn. So you do video with this text. The next day you do a post with this text. But the beauty of it is it's all you. It's the genuine, authentic experience of you. And then we rinse and repeat the next month. I deliver new content ideas, we record, and we do that. So that's how we solve the content problem for you.
And I gotta say, I've not gone through the 1 hour as of the recording of this. I've not gone through the intake call just yet. I did like a summary one to understand the service. And I've not recorded like the hour session yet, but I did vet. I said, hey, I want to know, like, send me an example of what you're actually sending over. Like, if I were to go through those two things, like, what would it look like? And it was legit. It was truly a content file. It was a true content repository. So if you've ever been out there and you've gone to HubSpot or just Googled like content calendar template or all of this stuff, and you try to create this on your own, and like, what should I post? And you're like, oh, we're gonna do like fun fact Fridays and whatever, right? Like, and like if you try to do that, like most people are doing that, but it's so hard to build that out. And I did see that, like they actually showed me a real file, not a template, like a real file that they sent to one of their real clients, and I could actually go see how things were deployed. Um, and it's actually really simple. Like it's clear instructions. It's like, hey, this is what you need to do with this thing. And there is an opportunity to like edit, right? It's like you don't have to just completely blind copy and paste if you don't want to. And if you want to send back and say, hey, this really isn't my voice, like there's some calibration in there as well. But the file they send you was really good. And that was outside of knowing I need it, like that was seeing that proof. I'm like, okay, this makes me feel much better about doing this because I believe I will be able to stay consistent. I can give an hour a month. Like I can do that for video. That's really good. And if I get the level of content laid out the way that they did, like I can commit to that. Like I can do that part. So the work didn't seem prohibitive and we're going to get at it. But yeah, I felt like there was something you were going to say on that, Alexis.
No, it's the simplest process, but it's so genuine and it works. Like, not our clients, number one, we're going to blow your impressions out of the water. Like, I mean, from what you're doing or have been doing, if you've been doing a good job, like, we're going to get eyes on your content. I mean, most of our clients experience growth in the thousands percent. I mean, sometimes one of our clients last month had like 120,000% growth from the previous month. I mean, so the fact alone that you are getting eyes on your content is a greater advantage than most recruiters are doing. I mean, you are getting yourself out there visible. So, I mean, we do that. I mean, that's like, I think almost easy because we create such great content. But in addition to that, like we help our clients do things like double revenues. I mean, get way more opportunities than they ever had before. So we're growing business consistently. We're positioning you as the leader consistently, doing other things like getting on podcasts, speaking engagements. Some of our clients have been asked to do now. I mean, we're constantly helping brands and businesses grow and it works. I mean, it's worked these last couple of years. Like we know what we're doing. And we're able to do it really well with our clients and they enjoy our partnership.
And I think, that's one of the last things we'll say about like the engagement stuff is it's really important because a lot of times LinkedIn doesn't work the same way as like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and a lot of these platforms out there with like likes and comments, right? LinkedIn is a little bit more of a subdued platform, in that regard. So if you're looking at like, hey, I want to be on LinkedIn and I want to grow my profile to have like 7 million followers and I want to have like I want to post a video and get like 1 million views on it, that's more like TikTok, right? LinkedIn typically doesn't operate that way. So if you try to compare like, oh, I want my LinkedIn to be like my TikTok or my Insta, whatever, you might be looking at the metrics wrong, and you might be focusing on the wrong thing. And that's another area that on our one of our summary calls, you kind of showed me, hey, this is really what a recruiter should be looking at. And if you got questions on that, you can follow up with Alexis directly. But I will tell you, this is just business 101. If you want to get more people buying your product, you have to tell more people what you do,
Yeah.
So engagement, impressions like that really is the getting the brand out there. And that's where I'm working with this. So for those of you out there that you're like, hey, this sounds amazing. We're excited to see where this goes in a few months and report back. I can't wait to have you part of that journey and share my own results. for anyone else that's like, hey, you know what, I want to go along on that journey with you, Dan, I would love that. I would invite you to do that and definitely message me directly and say, hey, I'm going to be doing this too. But Alexis, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you if they want to ask questions or learn more about Aura or even go even deeper in any of these subjects we talked about?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I know that my profile will be in the notes. You can click that. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Tell me this is where you saw me, so I accept your connection request, and then send me a message. I actually love helping other people. Like, I'm not going to try to sell you on things, but if you want to ask me any questions like, hey, what do you think of my profile picture? What do you think of my banner? Ask it to me. I will get back to you with like probably a video, maybe a voice note, but like genuine support. I'm truly here to help. If you have any questions on any of the pillars or process, let me know. And you can obviously check out our website. You can find out a little bit more about what we do, see more testimonials there. But yeah, check out my LinkedIn and my website.
Awesome. I love it so much. Alexis, thank you so much for being with us today, Staffing Monthly, and just sharing your knowledge for what recruiters need to be doing to really improve their LinkedIn outreach and really their profile that's going to elevate their brand to attract the right candidates and right clients to work with them. So if anyone wants to connect with Alexis, please do. And until next time.
Thank you for having me.